What it do, you number one podcast listeners? I am back with a brand new edition of the number one podcast in your headphones, Prem Brulee. I have a very special guest with me, and this episode is going to focus all on fantasy football, and I got the perfect person for it. I got Ian Hartitz joining me for the first time ever on Prem Brulee. Ian, welcome, man.
Great day, be great, bro. Appreciate linking back up. Just two Ohio boys getting the podcast game on, man. What can go wrong?
Yeah, man, we go number one podcast listeners, we go way back to JV baseball. So this is a long time coming. You do such big things. You're fantasy football writer, contributor, expert, I consider. You are currently with Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, Rotowire, and routine internet fame. I see you featured on NFL-centered memes all the time, and I say, I know that guy. And here I am getting you on Prem Brulee. What a feat for me. What an honor for me to have you here, Ian.
Yeah, bro. It's funny you bring up the JV baseball. I used to love baseball, and then all these kids started throwing curveballs at me, and I was like, "Hold on, what the hell? This thing's not going straight anymore." So, been chasing that football dragon ever since. So, yeah, man, it's a wild life. I'm blessed to be able to talk and kind of write and tweet nonsense about the game I love, man. But work hard and good things will happen sometimes, I guess.
If you don't already, I'm guessing a lot of number one podcast listeners already follow you, but I tagged you in the episode description here, but he's an incredible follow on Twitter. Well, formerly Twitter, I still call it that, but X.
I know.
At iHartitz, IHARTITZ. For those of you unaware of the goods, you'll thank me later. So a little plug for my guy here. And overall, big appreciation for you joining me. I'm going to ask you a ton of questions so that number one podcast listeners who are approaching their fantasy football draft know what's up. We already know ball, but this way they know what they're doing come draft season, so they're not laughed at by their peers.
Yeah, I was honestly laughing a little bit at the fantasy expert part. I would like to say alleged fantasy expert because we're wrong all the time too, just like any of you guys. So it is, I would like to think that we're right more often than pure gambling. I always say that, if my grandma and I were doing 10 bets against each other, she could very well sweep my ass. But, if we were doing 100 fantasy leagues against each other, I'd like to think I'd take her down, 75 plus. But you know what? Grandma knows some ball too. So we'll see what goes on. But no, man, I think a lot of it is just, I'm in a position where I am studying this 365 days a year. And it is funny this time of the year when I'm just getting texts from my buddies going, Rashad White is on what team now? Yeah. And it's like, someone I've been pondering like his place in this committee for the last 3-4 months. So, and then, your best laid plans could be awesome. Then all of a sudden, Jordan Tyson hurts his hamstring on a random August Monday afternoon, and all of a sudden you're panicking. So, as the great Norm Macdonald always said, too, don't gamble on football. The ball isn't even round. So, nonsense is going to happen. But I do think through preparation, through kind of knowing your rules and just knowing kind of the best ways to build your team, you can at least, put yourself in a better position to get lucky.
You're not guaranteeing championships, but hopefully we're at least guaranteeing you not last place here if you know ball.
100%, man. Honestly, yeah, I think like your playoff rates are probably a better indicator if you're doing something right in fantasy ball. So it's funny with the last place thing, man. I've had a long going, probably my second longest league is all my college friends. We're in a annoying, stupid 8-man league, and
wow,
we've had the last place punishment thing going for probably. Sounds like 17, it's like 15, 16 years or so. I've only lost that league one time, and it was in the first freaking year. And I had to wear a Jets Tim Tebow jersey to every Tuesday class for 10 weeks. And my freaking college, UChicago, is so nerdy that not once over the course of an entire quarter did anyone say, hey, man, noticed you're wearing a Tebow jersey, or notice you're wearing a Tebow jersey for 10 straight weeks. Just like, oh, I guess that guy must like football. Let me move on with my life. So yes, it's like Ricky Bobby, first, or that's the opposite actually. First, or just please anything other than last. So I can definitely get behind that.
Amen. That's hilarious. Tim Tebow. It wasn't noticed. I mean, that probably sucked for your league mates, but it was good enough for you then.
It's still in the closet somewhere, bro. I should
I
have
was going
broken
to
it
ask
after
you.
this one.
You're gonna have to rock it on one of your episodes that you post on your YouTube channel. If I see it, we'll know. Number one podcast listeners will know.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, I got my Fighting Wiener Dogs hockey jersey on. That was a drunk $175 purchase. But you know what? Now it's in the background of my podcast. So who's laughing now, Mrs. Hartitz? You said it was a dumb purchase.
There we go. I love it. It's a great backdrop. It's made for your profession too. You need a nice piece, and eventually you'll have awards donning that with all your fantasy football trophies. So then you can just feature those as your hardware.
Yeah, it's got to pay someone to get on some award list, right? Isn't that how those things usually work?
Exactly. Well, Ian, I got a ton of questions for you. Some are from the number one podcast listeners, but I tried my best to compile a pretty comprehensive list for those entering their drafts and different types of drafts so that at least they'll be informed heading into it. But first, before we get started, just a little bill paying here. This episode of the number one podcast in your headphones is brought to you by Mushroom. Number one podcast listeners, you already know, big focus on my health, and Mushroom has been a partner for a long time and something I believe in. They are functional mushroom blends for holistic wellness. And while many companies are doing it, Mushroom separates themselves by being physician and minority owned and backed. Something I'm proud to be affiliated with. I feel like it's really helped my game, not needing that caffeine kick midway through the day. A cool thing that Mushroom's coming out with is they've revamped their formula, and they're going to have liquid extracts that you'll be able to drop into any drink, I would imagine food that you want, in addition to pill form and powder form that you can mix into drinks. So all the different formats to get your functional mushroom blend and, health as well. So it helps your daily grind and helps you not depend on those energy drinks and caffeine and all that. So, you already know, number one podcast listeners, visit mushroom.com/prem brulee. That's mushnoom.com/prem brulee. You know how to spell that because you're here and tuned in. So without further ado, Ian, let's get rolling. Got a lot of questions to cover, and you're a busy man. We can reminisce about JV baseball once the recording stops. I'm sure there aren't a lot of stats to speak of between you and I, but we won't let them all know that.
No, not too many, man. We didn't even have a freshman team out there. Threw my ass out there into the fire. Yeah. So I got some beef with Coach Valentine still. How about that?
There we go. Name drop it. There we go. Well, it builds character, and it turned out great for you. You played football in college. It helped you focus in on the sport that mattered the most. So there you go.
Doesn't that kind of bug you when, we have to listen to like 5-star Ohio State kids be like, oh yeah, don't focus on one sport in high school. It's like, yeah, dude, if you're in the top 1% of the top 1% of athletes, you can walk onto a basketball court and score 20. I wouldn't focus on a sport either, but some of us got to fight and claw to make D3 football. Yeah. So that storyline always pisses me off.
That spoken like a person who's never played left bench.
Right. Exactly, man. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ian, we like to start each of our episodes with a section called Yeah, Fam or Nah. It's our version of like a love it or shove it. I'm going to read you a statement, and you're going to hit me with the yeah, fam if you agree with it, or nah if you don't, and elaborate as you will and as you please. But first up, to set the scene for number one podcast listeners, I wanted to rattle off your top 10 fantasy players from your ranking, just so we level set things and people can keep them in mind. So your top 10 players for fantasy, and this is, I think, half point PPR and full point PPR, which I think most people are at right now. You have Jahmyr Gibbs as your top player. Bijan Robinson is number 2. One I want to ask you about in a little bit, because this bucks the trend a little bit. You have Christian McCaffrey as your third player overall. And I really want to ask you about that here in a little bit, but I don't want to tip my cap too much. Next, you have Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Amon-Ra St. Brown. At number 8, you have Chase Brown, running back for the Bengals. At 9, you have Saquon Barkley. And at number 10, you have James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. So that's your top 10. As players are named, I'll do my best to fill in where you have them ranked and where you have them slotted to kind of ask you a little bit more. But people are always curious about top 10s, and everyone knows those players. So Most notable, I would say, sticking out to me that I will be asking you about is Christian McCaffrey at number 3, because I think that's a little different than so-called other experts, I'll say.
He goes,
Alleged experts.
yeah, there you
You're
go.
the
He
real
goes
you're the real expert, Ian. They're alleged.
one of
Yeah.
one, baby. He's usually going fifth. I had him there for a bit, but running back, man, once you get to definitely round 4, even parts of round 3, it's just a lot of questions out there. And as great as Jamar Chase and Puka are, man, if I can be sitting in that 3 spot and lock down CMC, I just really like the way it sets up the rest of the draft. So pretty close between him, Chase, and Puka. If you're a
Okay.
Bengals fan, you just want Jamar Chase. I'm not going to call you crazy or anything like that. It's more so about the build for the rest of the draft. I will say, too, this idea, older players, guys who have been injured, I understand they are more injury prone, but the way we talk about it, it's like this binary, you either are or aren't type of thing. I accept that McCaffrey is probably more injury prone than the next guy, but it's not like he's 10 out of 10 and James Cook is 0 out of 10.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I've done studies on these, big touch seasons and, how many games they play afterwards and everything like that. Honestly, like I think over the past decade, he had 350 plus touches, 30 running back sample. Median games next year was 16, average was 13. So you do see a bit of a drop off in yards per carry, but CMC, you don't see receiving roles like him, man. If Christian McCaffrey didn't have a single freaking rush attempt last year, he still would have had more PPR points than Saquon Barkley had, period. So
Whoa.
it really is, yeah, man, it's a crazy role he has. He's getting 100 plus targets, and Sam Fram certainly set up again. So number 3 for me, I think that top 5, though, that's like I feel really sure about all those guys. Puka, chill out, bro, please. I don't want to see you
Relax,
in the news
bro.
every other weekend. So that's the one question mark there. But if I can have my personal pick and I'm in my draft and, you got your first selection, I'm going 101. And if I can't get 101, I'm trying to be in that top 5. Once that passes up, that's when I'm probably going more so at the turn, maybe 11 or 12. But clear top 5 to me and then two break.
Got it. Good to know. That's another great question. Draft slot, because that's a big question that's asked. No concern about that power source in San Francisco, huh? With CMC, what
The
do they call it?
substation?
Substation.
Nah, man, he's actually been missing some practice with tightness. Getting a lot of great info on that one. Thanks a lot, Kyle. But it was funny last year. Like everyone was dropping down except CMC. So I don't know if he made some sort of sacrifice or black magic or what's going on. But I mean, as long as his tightest thing is chill, man, he should be okay. The rest of their RB room is all banged up. Kalen Black, Isaac Garendo, Jordan James, they're all freaking out of the picture too. Evans has been banged up. It is ridiculous what's going on there. So sounds like there could actually be some, like all jokes aside, maybe some science to it. So pretty wild stuff going out there in San Fran, man.
I know. All right. So you love CMC, top 5. Number 1 podcast listeners, if you haven't picked your draft slot, target those top 5 picks. If not, consider that 11, 12, the back-to-back picks into the second round. We'll talk a little strategy. I got a few questions for Ian, so to set you guys up for success, no matter where you're picking. Okay. All right, Ian, I want your take on this. I'm sure you do versions of all these, but are you a yeah fam or not to dynasty/keeper leagues?
Oh yeah, fam, 100%. I love my dynasty leagues. I'm probably in 4 or 5, and it's just the trades that keep me coming back, man. I'm not. I will say, like the one being in so many freaking leagues, I'm in probably like 15 or 20 redraft a year. Like trades are the one part that I have to kind of give up because I just can't. I can't pretend to be a good husband or try to stay in shape and, be grinding like every single leagues, what rosters need this and that. So we got some tools at Rotowire that help you out a little bit, which, helps. But the trades are the one thing that I just usually can't get to. But in Dynasty, I do have more time in the offseason stuff. So you can make some big deals in the rookie drafts and everything like that. So you just, you get like these personal attachments to players, man. You got to freaking, I had to choose between Hopkins and Nick Chubb, cutting them the other day. It was an emotional day, man.
Brutal.
Mrs. Hart's like, what's wrong? I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I had to let Nick Chubb go on the waiver wire. You know how much we've been through? So no, man, I love Dynasty.
Yeah. I was definitely skeptical, but I'm in one pretty serious one, and then I'm in another keeper league, and those are really fun to me. I just think the idea that you can improve your team and wheel and deal is fun for me. Like I grew up playing doing fantasy football drafts and Madden and franchise mode. So it really like
Yeah.
appeals to that, that inner child in me there. Okay. Yeah, fam or not is super flex.
Uh, it's fine. I'll go with nah. It just so much of my research is traditional, what most people are focused on. So I feel like Superflex throws a curveball. It adds more strategy, which is cool. I like it more than say tight end premium. I don't know if I do. That's not really the same thing. Superflex is fine. I'm going to
Okay.
go in the middle. There are
Fine.
enough quarterbacks where, it does force it to be a little bit harder, but yeah. I don't have a good reason for disliking Superflex. It's more so just the amount of time I think I spend on non-Superflex that throws a wrench in it. But you know what?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. So
You have a take. I know you're not super interested in it, but do you have a take on like in those leagues? Do you usually recommend prioritizing quarterback like those first 2-3 rounds, like getting 2 solid ones out of those?
at least one. I will say, don't. That's when you really got to know your tiers, and you don't want to play catch up. Because, like, look, if Allen, Lamar, Drake, and Jaden, like the top 7 or 8 quarterbacks are off the board, you don't want to take maybe. I like Brock Purdy, but you don't want to compete with the Josh Allen team by taking Brock Purdy in the same round. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the point where you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get myself a, Bijan Robinson, or I'm going to go ahead and get that Jamar Chase player to try to, really just make your lineup a weaponized elsewhere and not playing again, catch up at the quarterback. So it's all fun and games pushing quarterback and super flex until you're freaking starting, Geno Smith and Jacoby Brissett in week 1. So I would really say more times than not have at least one in the first 2-3 rounds at the most. After I get one, I'm fine to play the waiting game and push it a little bit, but again, it can get scary in those streets pretty fast.
No kidding. Yeah, the quarterbacks that you're okay with starting in your second spot, and then you start thinking, maybe a skill player is probably better in that super flex spot. So
Yeah, 100%.
all right, you kind of you answered this in advance, but you're fine with super flex. You said not really in on tight end premium leagues.
Yeah, I guess I did throw the TEP under the bus a little bit. It's just that extra nugget. Like, why are we rewarding tight ends with an extra half point? What makes them think they're so special?
It feels kind of participation trophy to me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Good take. I do think, like, I honestly have a war with like full PPR scoring just because I think the whole shout out Sleeper. They actually have tools that let you do point per reception by how far it's thrown downfield. Cause I do a joke on Twitter like every week during a season where it'll be a, minus 2-yard reception to a running back who just gets drilled the second he catches it. And it's like, oh yeah, that's the same as, a tackle, broken, filled, awesome 8-yard run by Derrick Henry. Like fantasy football, like we're trying to quantify and do the best we can to kind of show a fantasy version of what happens in real life. It's not perfect. You see rushing quarterbacks and receiving running backs generally pushed up, I would say higher than what they're considered to be in the real life streets. But full PPR, I think half is the move. Honestly, again, it would mess up my process a little bit. It goes back to the super flex thing, but like point per first down, I think is really where it's at. Like that's the valuable kind of metric that offenses are really striving for. So why not reward that? So it's more so the full PPR beef than tight end premium, but nothing pisses me off more than kicker scoring, man. We have leagues now where a 41-yard field goal is worth 4.1 points. A borderline chip shot is worth more than a passing freaking touchdown. I am outraged about this, dude. And I've even run the numbers out of spite. 50-plus yard field goals are being attempted more than ever, and they're simultaneously being made more than ever. This happened in the 2000s. It's why we actually moved passing touchdowns in the fantasy industry down from 5 or 6 points to now standard 4 points. We need to make that move again with fantasy football and these kicker, field goals going nuts. I think it should be 3 all the way up until 60. If you hit a 60-yarder, fine. I'll give you an extra point because that was, admittedly pretty cool. But anything below that, man, give me a break.
Wow. You see me fist pumping because I feel vindicated. My next question was a personal one because, okay. I need your expert take on this. Yeah, fam or not, a defense and kickers. You elaborate on the kicker part. So the background is I've been on a crusade against the use of defense and kickers because I think they're inherently so lucky. And I've done a little bit of my own little Ian Hartitz like research here, where the top one to the whatever the mid range kicker, the spread isn't that large, especially if you
Yeah.
divide it out by the whole season. So essentially what you're creating is this lucky week for someone that probably wouldn't have earned it otherwise. And it kind of coincides with that scoring, because if someone just starts knocking in 50 yarders, you could skew that whole game that you probably didn't deserve to win. So the league I'm commissioner of successfully campaigned to get rid of defense and kickers, and we just added Superflex this year. So
Oh,
it's kind of a,
mixing it
but
up.
it's a redraft too. So I thought it'd be a little different. Now I want your
Yeah.
take. Yeah, fam or not? Am I crazy about to do this, or should I feel vindicated that I got backing from an expert?
Oh, 100% vindicated, man. F
Yeah,
kickers and everything they stand for. I remember, dude, anyone that's played high school football, you guys see it. These kids are just soccer players and they show up for 10 minutes and then they go do God knows what with the
yeah,
rest of their day. Uh, there's a freak, my college, in Chicago, someone just, one of my best friends actually was a punter back in the day, but he said like they would go do workouts with us in the morning and they don't have to go to meetings. They'd literally be golfing. All right. They're glorified teammates, and the fact that they get like lifted up on shoulders after literally taking 3 steps forward and swinging their leg. So, Brandon Aubrey is like the best kicker in the NFL, and he couldn't cut it in the MLS, dude. Like they're dudes who could not succeed at their sport, so they fall back and become an NFL kicker. It is the most disgraceful position, I would argue, not just in football, but in all of professional sports. That's how I feel about
hell yeah, love it.
it.
All right. So, Ian, you helped me be vindicated. So I appreciate you for that. You're the man. I feel good about that now. And I'm going
You
to send
should.
that
You
clip to
should.
my whole league. Say, look, I got expert backing here that I was right all along. So, hell yeah. Okay.
Hell yeah, brother.
All right. Ian, we usually, each episode, I do a section called You Played Yourself, while I call out uh, things across the sports universe that deserve to be called out. And we called You Played Yourself. It's results you didn't expect to happen, and that probably shouldn't have happened, but you know, we're petty here, so we call them out. So my theme of this fantasy football one was in defense of fantasy football commissioners. So my You Played Yourself for this episode is goes to fantasy football commissioners, myself being one of them. This is a commiseration one. The thoughts and appreciation out there to all you commissioners trying to track down people in this fantasy football season, trying to figure out a draft time, trying to collect dues and get people to respond to messages. A grand You Played Yourself goes to us, but I'm with you. We got your back and we feel for you, but it definitely is a You Played Yourself, a thankless job that we try to implement. I'm surprised that your league from college actually holds true to the last place punishment. So kudos to you guys, but I don't have that type of fortune, and I think a lot of people out there are the same as me. So You Played Yourself goes to all of us.
Shout out to the commissioners, man. You're not kidding. It really is a thankless job. But the second anything goes wrong, they're the ones that all get made fun of. So I think the only way to do it accordingly is you got to have the champion from the previous year be the commission, man, because it's the only person that's going to be willing to put up with all the BS throughout the year, because you still got that, feel good championship glory going for you.
I love that. I love that theory. All right. You got, not to put you on the spot, Ian, but do you have any fantasy football related You Played Yourselves? Anybody doing something silly that has caught your eye lately?
Um, Good question.
You kind of issued a few with the kicking scoring already, so you inherently issued a You
Yeah,
Played
I
Yourself.
just
So.
I just get annoyed at the victory laps in general, and especially like in August before shit has even happened. I'm happy football is back too, everyone. Practice highlights are fine. Preseason highlights are fine. Football is back on our television. We've only had freaking baseball and soccer for the last God knows how many months. So it's okay to be excited, but just spare me, your best ball exposure screenshots. Spare me the, draft take you had in March when literally nothing has even freaking happened yet. All right. So,
Yeah.
It's just one of those things too, where like, all right, it's fine you said something smart. It turned out good for you, man. But I don't think it's a coincidence that most of the people who are so willing and eager to pat themselves on the backs and then also, vicious and very confrontational the second anyone calls them out on something they were inevitably wrong with as well. So I've been wrong a million times. I'll be wrong a million more. It's nice when we're right about a couple things. The thing I try to take pride in more than anything, man, is just I think that more times than not, people, I just try to have a sound process. And, if someone's able to call out a big hole in that as it's happening, kudos. But just the I told you so's and the, after the fact combined with, trying to puff out your chest before anything has happened. That's when I get a little bit annoyed at, people in my industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing's happened yet. Take your victory lap later. No premature victory laps.
That's what I'm saying, man.
You hinted at it. I forgot to ask you, how many leagues would you say you're in? Like, you gave how many did you say dynasty related that you're in?
I'm probably in 5 dynasties. I do a couple guillotine leagues, which if you don't know what those are, we can talk about those. They're freaking awesome. And then anywhere from, I would say, low number of redraft leagues I got to manage every week, probably low number 15, high number 25 or so during any given year. And then we got these things called best ball leagues, which is DraftKings and Underdog Fantasy have them, where you just draft and that's it. Like, you don't have to do any management or anything like that. Like, it'll optimize your lineup week after week, put your best, scores in there. And then by end of the season, there's a playoff method and there's all that. Those are really fun, man. And I probably do a couple hundred of those, honestly, per year. So
it's so easy to knock out or draft.
Yeah, right? they take like 40 minutes. It's just a chill kind of side screen. Or the big thing the big life hack I've had recently is just when I'm on the treadmill at the gym. I hate running, man, but I've gotten into the incline walking a little bit. It just burns a lot of calories, and I think it's not like the worst thing in the world to do, at least compared to running. So doing that while doing a best ball draft or doing all my waiver BS has saved me so much time. Made me, just kind of taking I don't want to say a bad habit. I do love fantasy football and everything, but taking a time-consuming habit where I remember, I'd finish work at 8 or 9 p.m. on like a Tuesday. I've been doing fantasy stuff all day, which is a blessing. I don't want to complain about it, but it's like I would then be like, all right, now time to do waivers for an hour and a half. So like, whatever your job is, that's annoying to have to do at the end of the day. So, being able to at least, not miss the workouts, 2 birds, 1 stone, that's been a blessing. But have you heard of guillotine links?
So am I right in saying, like, if you're last, you get cut, or you don't get to be part of it the following season, right? Is that right?
No, it's just a week. It's weekly. So you start off with 17 teams, low score every week, you're done. Your season's over. Your entire team goes to free agency and waivers. So there's a couple advantages of this. The bar, you just don't be in last. That's all. You can finish second to last the whole season. And as long as you, keep that up, you'll be winning. The other good advantage, we've all had some bad fantasy teams. It's freaking annoying in week 7 when you're 1-6 and you got to pretend to care about this corpse of a team that, is pretty much dead already. And guillotine, if you suck, all right, well, you lost. Your season's over. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And then just, again, I got to do 20 of these waiver wires, bro, where I'm looking at the Vikings 3rd string running back, the 4th wide receiver on the Titans time and time again. I get to my guillotine waivers and it's like, oh, CeeDee Lamb's on the open market. Joe Burrow. Like, do I want to get one of these guys? So very, very fun league. There's different names for it. Chopped is another one, like Eliminator style. I think might be Yahoo's way of going about it.
People trying to be politically corrupt.
Yeah, I think it's just more copyright type, but that's a decent point. It's I can tell you, my former employer owning the guillotine title, it's very much a copyright issue they take seriously more than anything. But that is like my growing favorite form of fantasy football, because again, it's still just regular fantasy football at its core. You're setting traditional lineups, but the waiver wire being as fun as it is, man, and just that. The Monday night sweats are unbelievable because you're like, oh my God, my season could be over. And like, you're having that happen multiple times every season. So
yeah, your scoreboard watching other other bad teams that week. That'd be fun.
Exactly.
I'm intrigued. Maybe this isn't good for my quality time with my family is talking to you. All due respect, Ian. Well,
Yeah, I hear you, brother.
these are all capable after everybody goes to sleep. You hit the waiver wire, everybody's asleep in the house. It's your time. Like you said, you combine it with the workout. It's like it never happened.
I'm a night owl, bro. I was up early somewhat recent. There's nothing to do. Places don't even open up until
Yeah,
8 or 9 a.m. Like, come on. At
e-
least I can watch old YouTube highlights at night. I guess I can do that in the
exactly.
morning, but it's a little
There we
weird.
go. All right. Okay, so our next section that we typically do, and the other one's going to be the most meaty, but I do want to, number one podcast listeners love these sections. So the next one's Am I Hating? It's statements that we say are probably clearly hating, but we say them anyway because it's a safe space. So my Am I Hating for this episode is also on theme. Am I hating if I tell people that they suck for not caring about other people's fantasy leagues? I feel like it's such a popular take now to say, I don't care. Nobody cares about your fantasy team. Is talking football not fun anymore? We all just don't like talking ball all of a sudden, unless it's about yourself. Hey, a good way to talk about your own team is to listen to somebody else talk about theirs. It feels might feel transactional, but it feels human nature. So am I hating if I hate on the people that hate talking about your fantasy league? I bring it on. I love hearing about fantasy leagues. I'm fascinated by how people run theirs. So I want to hear about your team. I'm rooting for you. So we're going to act like we're not? I want to talk ball better than not talking ball. Am I right? Am I hating or no, Ian?
Not hating. It's a good take, man. Now, look, like in any avenue and any hobby, there's some bad apples, all right? Some people
Yeah.
who are atting the players after a bad game, just being dickheads about it. Yeah, that's not fun. But you know what? That's, again, people do that in every walk of life. So I'm with you. It has been a little bit overrated. So many people, particularly, I think, in nowadays generation with red zone going on and just the ability to watch all 32 teams. I mean, I think people still have their favorite teams, but it's like basketball. Like I think a lot of people more so just follow certain players at this point, and fantasy has helped, really drive that in. So I don't see any issues at all, man. And honestly, like it's just given so much more publicity to these players. So I don't blame NFL players for having an up and down relationship with it because they have a bad day at work and they have to go see Joe Schmo telling them God knows what, or see my dumbass making a joke about them on Twitter that's got, God knows how many likes and everything like that. So I completely understand their mixed relationship with it. But man, it's a lot of extra money that fantasy brings in, a lot of extra publicity that, again, the guys that do lean into it, I feel like get a lot of help there. So not hating at all. Another good take, my friend.
Ian, you get paid to do this. Like, do you enjoy hearing other people just talk about their fantasy team? It's never cool to tweet at someone, all that stuff. We've said that a whole bunch of previous episodes. Like, if you think, hey, maybe I should at this player that lost me in my fantasy week. If you're ever thinking that, it's probably not the right idea. That you should probably put your phone down. But I mean, like water cooler talk. You're talking to a buddy about their fantasy team. You get paid to do it, so you get questions left and right. Are you still interested if a friend asks you or an acquaintance asks you, talks about their team?
100%, dude. God knows. I mean, I don't want to talk about politics or some other freaking thing I know nothing about. So, oh no, man, I'm happy to. And inevitably, like every wedding I go to or bachelor party or whatever, like I always end up with a new number or two, and someone hit me up in August for their draft, and I love it, dude. Again, I give out so much. That's my job basically, to give out advice daily to a bunch of people that I'll never meet and I have never met. And that's fine. They're usually pretty nice, and like that's cool. I'm fine with that, but when I do get like, one of my drunk friends, Puneet Bhatti, like he reaches out to me like once a year to talk about his fantasy draft and stuff. And it's good, man. It keeps me in touch with people that I otherwise probably wouldn't have done so with. So I'm with you, man. It is fun too. Like you hear about, I met this one kid recently. He's in a league with billionaires like in Chicago, and like they have like a 10K buy-in. So he's got like 4 or 5 friends and they, split the funds with it. And he was just talking about some of these billionaires, man, 10K buy-in, like they're still not even setting a lineup during a week. So I guess that's kind of how the other half lives sometimes. And then, dude, this one was crazy. I've had very few experiences where like I actually meet someone in real life and they like kind of know who I am. But it's happened a couple times. And I went to Chase Bank with my wife on like a Friday morning just to do some banking thing. And the dude knew me from Twitter, and he starts telling me about his fantasy league. This dude was in a fantasy league that combined like World of Warcraft with fantasy football.
What?
I gotta try to find it. I still barely understand. This dude spent like 30 minutes trying to explain this thing to me, man. So I've heard of other fantasy leagues where it'll be like football, baseball, basketball cross. So you do like intersports trades and you're just constantly playing throughout the season. It is limitless possibilities, and I am absolutely here for it. My weirdest one that I'm in is just a 32 team league, which is fantastic. You know,
Whoa.
it's just like the dude you're starting, or that's the other end, like the waiver wire. It's so gross that it becomes interesting. I'm like, well, Mitchell Tinsley, Bengals wide receiver 4, you know, he had 30% snaps last week. So and then you'll see that dude like get like a 140-yard catch, and you're just going nuts. So
Yes.
that's the other side of things that really, really get me going, man.
We're going into degenerate territory over there. Yeah.
Yes.
Love it. Safe space. All right, Ian, this is going to be the meat of the episode where I think number one podcast listeners learn the most for their respective drafts. And I want to pick your brain about strategy and your thoughts on a bunch of these questions. So I did have a listener / co-host submit a question. I just want to get your take. This feels like it's going to be a safe spot for it. And you're the right guy for this, but I'm going to read you the question. For 2 years, I've been trying to dissolve my league because this shit is fucking stupid. I instituted auto drafts and gave people no choice on their draft positions, as I left it up to be totally random. And having the auto draft take place in the middle of the night, so you'd have to be a real fucking psychopath to log in and draft. Guess what? These past 2 years have been 2 of the most competitive years in league history and has pushed forth 2 completely new champions. My question is, why don't more people do this? It's clearly superior than wondering who goes 7th in the 5th round. Is this unhinged, Ian? Is this teetering on unhinged?
So they only auto draft?
Yeah, they force, like, if you wanted to log in, it's in the middle of the night.
I don't understand this. It's just the most random thing possible, and you're giving away your control for it, and you're presumably putting some money up toward. I mean, it's an interesting way, I guess, to start everyone off kind of at zero when the season starts, and then it's like it is ridiculous. But the one way it wouldn't be ridiculous is just like you are starting everyone off kind of, you would think, equal at the season. But I don't know. I think in-season management, waivers and trades, like that's the most time-consuming part. So if your goal is to reduce the amount of time needed for a draft, you're just making that much more time, presumably, for the season. So that is crazy. I will say one of my pet peeves with fantasy football, I hate how when you time out and you auto draft, you get the top player that's fallen. You usually get rewarded. You get like a steal, some guy who, again, should have gone 10 picks before.
I'm still against auto draft.
Bro, it should be either nobody and people keep drafting after you, and you can pick whenever you decide to make a pick, you can go ahead and pick whoever is still on the board. That's the way the NFL draft does it. Or sucks to suck, man. Give them freaking Duke Johnson. Give them the worst name, the lowest, most random person at the end of that ESPN queue. Like, we reward auto drafters way too much. If you can't make a pick for some reason, guess what? We invented a queue. It's easy enough to do it.
Yep. I wholeheartedly agree. I think this person does it partly for rage bait because he knows I'm so anti auto draft. Like, I won't do it. If you're gonna auto draft, you're not gonna be in the league. Like, I don't have a lot of standards. That's one of them. We're not taking pride in auto drafts. Yeah. We're not doing it. So I agree with you. That would be a nice system to penalize auto draft. Get the last player, like auto assignment. Okay, Ian, that was the unhinged question of it. Now, down to brass tacks here. I just, for as quickly as you can do this, you talked about like the top 5 players and then 11, 12. Can you give us a rundown of how you draft at each position in the first round? Like, you have the top 3 running backs, obviously. If you get Chase or Puka, who do you then take in round 2? Just talking strategy for those first couple rounds.
Yeah, in general, man, I don't want to be leaving. The longest I could see myself pushing, not having an RB, would be round 5. Round 5, you have your DeAndre Swifts, your David Montgomerys of the world. You can still kind of talk yourself into them being a reasonably, low end RB1. After that, it's question mark after question mark. And look, we'll draft running backs after that, but like putting a Bashaw Tootin or putting a Jadarian Price, putting, Jalen Warren or Rico Dowdle in as your RB1, that's where it gets dicey. I'm okay going with what's called a hero RB approach. That's where you draft one stud RB early, your McCaffrey, your Gibbs, your Bijan. And then you load up everywhere else, man. You get a bunch of sick wide receivers. Maybe you take a Brock Bowers. Maybe you get a Lamar Jackson or Drake May. And you kind of like moneyball the RB2 spot. You say, we're going to build this up in aggregate. I'm going to get 5 or 6 dudes who, again, maybe it is the Jalen Warren. Maybe it is going to be Rashad White, a Washington Commander kind of muddle backfield. Same thing with the Vikings. I'm going to get my Tank Bigsby handcuff and just play the waiver wire, and we'll figure out what to do with RB2. But you draft like you're right. You got that RB1 spot, and that allows you just to load up on other positions, particularly wide receiver, man, that will dry up usually around round 10. And at that point, I just wanted to be devoting my bed spots to handcuff running backs at that point, because they're one injury away from being on the cover of all the waiver wire articles. Wide receivers at that point, yeah, once a decade, you'll get a Puka Nacua, but more times than not, it's going to be, a Kevin Ogletree type of player who is good for a week, and then you start them, and then all of a sudden they bust for it. So, look, I try to be like Bruce Lee with the draft, be like water. Don't go in with any predetermined, fancy strategy going on, because that's an easy way to go ahead and kind of miss out. I will say, though, man, if you can find a way this year, particularly to get 2 running backs inside those first 3 rounds, the right running backs, but any of the guys kind of the top 13, 14, the top 12 are pretty consensus. You got like Hampton, Chase Brown, Henry, Achane, Saquon going after some of the guys we talked about already. Javonte Williams, the Cowboys running back. Yeah, exactly. Javonte could fall into the end zone 15 times. The Cowboys are going to be a really good offense this year. And pending the groin and legal situation, which is 2 things that's not great to have in August, I get it. But Josh Jacobs, similar, sentiment. So I just want to avoid the taking these, we call them dead zone running backs, guys who aren't particularly good. We don't like their offense, but we look at them in August and we say, well, they should get the ball a lot. I'm just going to chase that volume. Those are the kind of black holes in rounds, 3 through 6 or 7 that you do got to be careful of. So the Cam Scadaboos, the Quinshawn Judkins, Breece Hall, Jeremiah Love, honestly, they've been injured too now, which doesn't help their matters. But that's what we're trying to, at least in my opinion, avoid. It does. Some of them will work out, of course. Again, there's no one size fits all rule in fantasy football, or pretty much anything for that matter. But it's trying to avoid these running, because we saw last year, man, Jonathan Taylor, best running back in the league first half of the year, averaging like 27 fantasy points per game. Weeks 11 through 18, once Daniel Jones got hurt, once they had Phillip Rivers under center, I think he was RB22 behind Tony Pollard. Like, I don't think Jonathan Taylor magically turned into a dirt average running back. It was his offensive situation. Like, in real life talk, we always agree, like, running backs are the most dependent position on their offense, on their scoring opportunities, on their play caller, on their offensive line. Like, there's only so much they can do. So believe that and buy into it in Fantasyland, man. So more times than not this year, if the draft is going my way, though, I'll leave the first 3 rounds with 2 running backs, maybe Brock Bowers, more likely a sick wide receiver, maybe an A.J. Brown. I think he's going to bounce back in a big way, because I want as many bullets as possible in rounds 4 through 7 to get on these wide receivers, man. So ideally, I would say through 9 rounds, you want to have at least 5 wide receivers, at least 3 running backs, particularly if they're good ones. And then maybe you can get an elite quarterback or tight end. If you go with Brock Bowers, you probably shouldn't try to take Josh Allen right after it. As tempting as it is, it's just going to really leave you kind of far behind to try and play catch up at running back or wide receiver. So I know I threw a lot out there, but that's, again, some of the more like general strategy, just, one size fits all sort of stuff, particularly with the way things are setting up this year.
No, that's great, because I was going to ask, like, you talked about loving the top 5, and then the end where it's like, I think 10, 11, 12 is where you have like Chase Brown and Saquon and James Cook, where you like those slots a little better because you get a good running back, and then you could, from what you were saying, probably get a really good receiver on the wraparound, or someone like Brock Bowers, so to speak. But it's an important thing to hear if you end up with that Brock Bowers pick to maybe not also reach for the top quarterback. I think it's a good strategy point to note for people.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is, all right, so you did answer this. I was going to ask you, do you feel like you need a running back one of the first 2 rounds to win? If for some reason someone doesn't get a running back in the first 2 rounds, which running backs do you like, say, in round 3 the most?
Javonte Williams and Josh Jacobs. Those are my 2 dudes I'm probably taking there. Jacobs, you can wait till 4 in more drafts than not. If you get past that, DeAndre Swift has never been anything worse than an RB2 in his career. Kyle Monunga is now hurt. We love the Bears offense. Dave Montgomery now in Houston, badass defense. They like to run kind of a ball control offense as well. He could just be someone that has 300 plus touches. A little bit dead zoney. Again, I don't think the Houston Texans are going to be confused with 99 Rams. He doesn't catch a bunch of passes, a little bit older. So I go back and forth on Montgomery like by the freaking week, man. But those would be kind of the main guys. Again, Brees Hall, Jeremiah Love, they're really good at football. Travis Etienne is someone I've gone back and forth with as well. I've run the numbers on, man, in like last decade, there's only been 14 running backs post top 12 numbers per game and bottom 10 scoring offenses. So you start doing the math, man, there's never been more than 2 in one season in the last 10 years. And we can look at what Vegas says in their game by game spreads and over unders, and we can literally calculate, who Vegas thinks is going to be 1 through 32. They're going to be wrong on some, but let's face it, the guys in the desert have many, many, many billions of reasons to try to be as right about this stuff as possible. So when you look at the top 2 rounds or so, the guys who kind of qualify as, again, this bottom 10 offense, Bijan Robinson, Ashton Genty, which we saw how that happened last year, Brees Hall, Jeremiah Love, and Devon Achane. So the guys who have overcome it have been able to catch 50, 60 plus passes. Again, the full PPR cheat code for running backs is a very real thing. Those guys do have that ability, but that's why I have Chase Brown 8th overall, man. RB4. Like, as much as who would I want to start a football team with, Jonathan Taylor or Chase Brown? Of course, Jonathan Taylor. But man, I could see that Colts offense with Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles, with Josh Downs as your only wide receiver threat. And respectfully, shout out Caleb Downs' brother. Like, Josh is the man, but 5'8", 170, whatever the hell he is, I don't think that dude's scaring people downfield. Your 9-figure field stretcher, Alec Pierce, still can't find his way onto the field. You didn't replace Michael Pittman. So I could just see the Colts being really freaking bad. And I look at Chase Brown, it's like he's checking every box I want. Real life talent, he's probably more of a 6 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10. So there's always going to be some give or take with it. But yeah, round 3, everything lines up my way. Give me Javonte Williams.
Okay. So when in doubt, lean towards a good offense, like a player in a good offense. If you're deciding between 2 guys, go with a better offense.
That's my tiebreaker.
History tells you that if you're coming from a bad offense, there aren't going to be too many that break through. If you do, you probably got lucky that year, I would assume.
Yeah, and, guys are going to get injured. Shit's going to happen too. But I do think, as a good tiebreaker, particularly early on, give me the guy in the good offense, man. Cardinals and the Jets this year. It's freaking August. I could talk you through and make a compelling pitch about why the Cardinals could be a good offense. I could also do it for 31 other teams out there. Okay. And there's so many people, I could have done this for the haters thing. I see so many fantasy analysts where they just only say good things about players because they're afraid of, because guess what? If I say something really smart here about a player and I'm right, and I was being positive about him, people probably won't really remember. But I just said, Javonte Williams was the best click in round 3. If he sucks and it busts, everyone will remember that, man. Everyone always remembers your misses more than your hits. So I think it's in our, natural instinct to try to stay away from that. But, it's my job for people to yell at me on the internet sometimes, man. I love it. You got to lean into it. And again, I just think at the end of the day, we're going to be right. We're going to be wrong. You got to actually take some stands instead of just trying to say God, that's the thing that annoys me the most, bro. Is people that are in 30 leagues like me and they're just they never say don't draft a guy. They're like, oh, yeah, I'll get some exposure to him. Do you
Yeah.
want to draft him or not? Because I know everyone
Yeah.
out there is a normal person with a real life, and you're in one league, and that's the advice you're looking for.
Yes. I appreciate that perspective because especially in this podcast, we're the kings of doubling and tripling down, and then we don't really make you answer for it. So this is a safe space for a hot take. Yeah.
Appreciate you, bro.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any players in the top besides you just mentioned some of them, but who are you out on? Any big players that you're out on that are notable that people will be surprised by?
I was fading Brees and Jeremiah Love because of how bad their offenses are, but now they're injured. So now it's going to be the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get applauded for my brave, bold fades of the guys back when they were going in round 3. You know, I'll cry everyone a river there. Rashee Rice is one where I've started to see him drop too, but man, I'm just out on him this year. And I'm not trying to do the whole I'm such a good person. I'm not going to go near someone like Rashee Rice. I've drafted Deshaun Watson over the past couple years before we knew just how bad he was, man. So hey, it's fantasy football, man. There's bad people in every industry out there. But Rashee Rice, man, I just think if you try to find the next worst real life receiver, you have to get down to the 30s, man. I did the exercise one time where I was like, how far would I have to go down this list to find a receiver that the Chiefs wouldn't immediately trade Rashee Rice for straight up? And I got to Quentin Johnston in the wide receiver 3 range. And that's, I don't know. I think they probably keep Rashee Rice, but that one made me think. That was the first one I got to, which means I got through about, 20 plus other names where it really wasn't much of a conversation. He's an extremely limited player in an offense that has, unfortunately, relative to their usual selves, and even across the league, they've been average and bad, again, relative to at least the pass additions of the Mahomes offense. He needs that steady dose of screens and low ADOT targets to make his points happen in PPR. And to his credit, he's done it. He's usually been a wide receiver 1 or upside wide receiver 2, when healthy or when legally allowed to be out there on the football field. But the fact that this dude had to rehab his knee surgery in prison is a bad start. We're continuing to get mediocre training camp reports from this guy. It's an offense that now, with Xavier Worthy, hopefully healthy. I know he's already had the shoulder thing, but Cyrus Allen coming up, there's a little bit more competition that I think could take some of those lower, 8 eyes average depth of target. So it's just kind of passes within 5 yards line of scrimmage, those sorts of opportunities. I just think to sign up for that in round 2, early round 3, way too many problems for me, man. I'm okay because I think there's 5 guys, maybe 6 or 7 if you want to include Amon-Ra, JSM. Those are the only players I think age, talent, volume, offense. We just really have no questions. Yeah. Everyone has some sort of reddish flag. I think I just named several for Rashee Rice, man. And we're talking about an early round pick. So Rashee Rice, I'm letting someone else draft him.
Okay. Are there any players that you feel are going too high by average draft position, ADP?
Just going too high. I think Rice, obviously one of those guys. Let me get a look at some of these old ranks. Justin Jefferson scares me, man. I know how freaking good he is, but that was rough last year. And are we positive the 2026 version of Kyler Murray is worlds better than JJ? Again, I have Jefferson ranked 18th overall, but going round 1 for a guy who just finished wide receiver 30, for a guy in an offense that is expecting to be below average, makes me nervous. Devon Acham, Dolphins could just very well be the worst offense in the league. Malik Willis, he scrambles instead of checking down. That's the big difference between last year's bad offense and this one. Tua is one of the highest check down quarterbacks in the NFL. Trey McBride, I don't like the Cardinals.
Okay.
Anyone else here? Garrett Wilson, I don't like the Jets. I think I'm pretty consistent with some of these dudes that I'm not exactly on. Cam Scatteraboo and Quinshon Judkins, fun players. I prefer my running backs that I'm taking in the first 5 rounds to have legs that have been in one piece over the last 12 months. Call me crazy.
Great assessment. Yeah. Okay. What about players you think are going too low that you value more than most people are drafting them?
Parker Washington, someone really on the come up. training camp rocket ship, but for good reason. Been balling out there. He was their best receiver last 5 weeks of last year.
The
And
Jags.
Yeah, man. Jaguars. I've heard it's Jaguars, not Jaguars. I've been pronouncing it wrong my entire life. So good job, Ian. But
good job out of us. Yeah,
I did look at the difference between breakouts on like dead in the water teams. You know, the Michael Wilsons of the world last season versus someone like a Parker Washington. And when you're on the competitive team, man, it tends to be much more powerful. You know, we can kind of more reliably, I would say, predict that those guys are going to continue to have a really good future. So love Parker Washington. Casey Concepcion, Ohio boy now with the Browns.
Yeah.
He is good, man. Bad offense, I get it. But what we saw from Todd Monken in that preseason game, and it makes sense, just get the ball in this dude's hands.
Yeah.
He played a good amount of true running back at NC State. Saw him get a reverse touchdown. Saw him get a pop pass. He's out there returning punts. If we're in a bad offense with a bad quarterback, yeah, exactly, bro. Like, we need design touches. So gadget touches are fine as long as they don't come at the expense of a full-time role. I think KC should be good there.
Cool.
Some of these running backs, again, like our natural inclination in a mysterious, ambiguous backfield, like the Vikings, like Washington, like what would be the other one?
Are you touching?
Those are kind of the two main ones.
Are you touching those?
100%. They're so cheap because people get scared. But like, buy into it, man, because Rachaad White and Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, we don't know who's going to be the top guy. That's why they're both ranked like outside the top 35 running backs. Once we figure it out, though, that dude's going to be a great value. He's probably going to be a low-end RB2, and we can get him at an RB4 price tag. So you got to embrace that, man. You look at the guys that they're going next to, and it's, again, these random wide receiver 5s or dudes who are already drafting their second quarterback or their second tight end or something like that. So I say those ambiguous backfields over there. Late round quarterback, this is the year for it. Guys, we can actually draft cheaper dual threat quarterbacks again, usually like the Justin Fields of the world. Like, you feel gross doing it, but you just think the fantasy points will get there, and they usually do, but you'd have to use like a top 10 quarterback pick on it. Kyler and Malik are actually cheap this year, and you can pair them up, man, with someone like Jared Goff, with someone like Matthew Stafford, who is just going round 11 or later in a lot of these drafts, man. So and that'd be the other big thing I didn't really mention with the overall strategy. Late round quarterback, guys. Just because your league mates are doing a run on QBs, you can wait. Be that guy where in round 12 or round 13, you get Bo Nix, and then you scoop Jared Goff for good measures to give you a little more safety there. And everyone's like, my God, if I would have known that dude was going to be there that late, I would have waited. Be that guy this year, man. I try to get 100 push-ups in for any draft that I draft a quarterback before round 10. That's how freaking much I've seen it with my own eyes and been in those rooms where it's just like, time and time again, someone will fall. Mahomes, man, he'll go in round 12 and 13 in some of these drafts this year. And I understand why he's fallen, but such good value, a late round QB this year.
That's great. That was going to be one of my questions. If you miss out on one of the top ones, or it makes sense, like with the Josh Allens, I assume, but wait on quarterback, that's always been my strategy historically. So fascinated by that super flex I'm running to see how that changes. But
a little bit different there for sure.
Yeah. Who are a couple of favorite deep cut players, like in last rounds, to take a flyer on that you like?
Yeah, running back wise, again, don't feel like you need to be balanced. Once you get into the double digit rounds, take these handcuff running backs. If you need a waiver wire replacement wide receiver, they're out there. Tank Bigsby, Saquon's backup. Ray Davis is James Cook's backup. Mike Washington is Ashton Genty's backup. 3 really good every down running backs we can feel good about. Marshawn Lloyd is Josh Jacobs' backup. He's going up the ranks. If you do a late round tight end, that's nice. Deeper leagues, but if you're in like a 20 rounder, Terrence Ferguson for the Rams, he might be getting a nice role increase. Rams tight ends last year, they scored the second most points in the league, but they just rotated it so much that we can never feel great about it. But if we do get a little more focus on T. Ferg, he could be a quick riser. If I actually have a wide receiver sleeper video going up on Fantasy Football with Ian Hartitz tomorrow. Check it out, subscribe, yada, yada. But yeah, Casey Concepcion.
I got your plug on the description too, so you guys can all shoot over there. Yeah.
My guy, appreciate you. I mentioned Casey earlier. Matthew Golden, Rashid Shaheed, Trey Harris are other, if you want to go later on, wide receiver guys. And finally, man, last round pick, Travis Hunter. All right. I know he's
Okay.
playing cornerback, but this dude was good enough to be a number 2 overall pick last year. If there is such thing as a wide receiver handcuff, it's him, man. This dude is so talented. That's why he went 2nd overall. I'm not breaking news there. The one issue here, because again, I mentioned it, like we all have these, it's age, volume, offense, and then usage. I get it. The usage isn't looking great. It's also August, man. We predict usage wrong all the freaking time. So if we're getting a freaking round 14, round 15 price tag on someone that's checking every other box, not too many dudes can say that.
Sweet. Okay. For the dynasty people out there, do you have a favorite couple dynasty players? And like, how do you stack your rookies in deep cuts? Just like a quick overview before we get you out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously always evolving. You do want to have your best, Leonardo DiCaprio cap on and just, get rid of dudes a year early than a year late and everything. So I will say in general, I do prefer wide receiver versus running back. If you're in a situation where like you're worried about your starting lineup and it's, maybe if you're in a rookie draft, it's Darian Price versus Mekhi Lemon or something like that. All else equal, man, I always want the wide receiver because I just feel like, again, they have such a longer shelf life, and I feel better about our ability to kind of predict their talent going to the next level. But again, gotta do what we gotta do sometimes to have that, starting lineup. Stash wise, I will say, keep an eye on these dual threat backup quarterbacks, man. Maybe I'm being a prisoner of the moment, but like I got Malik Willis in all my leagues last year,
Really?
just sitting out there on the waiver wire. And I do wonder if that could be something about to happen to guys like Anthony Richardson soon. It's one of those things, man. We've seen it from Taysom Hill, we've seen it from Justin Fields, we saw it from Tim Tebow back in the day, going first full circle now. You don't have to be a good real life quarterback to be a good fantasy one if you just run the ball. It really is that simple. And we've seen that year over year. So, one guy I will say from this class I really like, he actually just got taken off the NFI list today. Chris Bell, wide receiver for the Dolphins. This dude could have gone round 1, man, if he didn't have that unfortunate later season ACL tear. 6'2", 220. You put his film on at Louisville, man, you really will see some AJ Brown vibes out there. So
Cool.
ultra talented dude, offense without anyone to speak of, in the long term, at least at that wide receiver spot. Very, very excited about what Chris Bell could do in the future.
Sweet. For tight ends, you mentioned Brock Bowers. You talked about the Cardinals. Are you still with McBride, or do you rank like Colston Loveland above that?
So here's the thing. I have Loveland one spot ahead of McBride. In my heart of hearts, like, someone takes my whole family hostage. They're like, who scores more fantasy points this year? Probably McBride.
Yeah.
My thing is, everyone says the same damn thing, though. They go, well, I have McBride ranked higher, but I like drafting Loveland where he goes more.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would love if everyone listens to every single word I say on my podcast and they read all my articles. A lot of people just want to look at ranks. They want to show up in their draft and go.
Yeah.
I leave it up to you guys to know when to try to get these guys, to know your league mates, to know your league ADP and stuff, man. So when I have Colston Loveland there, that's my way of saying, like, I'm higher on Colston Loveland than I am Trey McBride. I'm not drafting Colston Loveland in round 2 like you have to draft Trey McBride, but it's my way of saying, God damn, man, round 4, sign me up for Colston Loveland. So I will say, I've been hating on these offenses. I am making an exception for the Raiders because I think the volume is going to be so centralized on Bowers. He does have JSN's previous coach, Clint Kubiak. I do think Bowers is going to be this year's JSN. And it's just the first year, number 1 overall pick, new head coach marriage, where I think it could be similar to Saints last year. This isn't the situation, I think, where you see just oh my God, who's this random, rookie quarterback that's not even going to be here next year with this horrible coach that might get fired, after the first season. I think even if the Raiders are bad, they're going to be like the Saints last year where they're building towards a brighter future. And accordingly, in November and December, even if they're not a great football team, they could still be peaking at the right time. So I do like Bowers in round 2. I'm not as much of a fan of McBride. I like Loveland round 4. I go a little back and forth on Tyler Warren. I will say, though, after that, man, I'm usually content just to wait for the late rounds at that point.
Okay. Another one, just like quarterbacks for you. Okay. Ian, we've taken up enough of your time. I sincerely appreciate you informing the number 1 podcast listeners and making sure they get right before their fantasy football drafts. Number 1 podcast listeners, I hope you dug the content. You can find Ian on the friendly confines of Twitter. An amazing follow, like I said, his YouTube channel. It's linked in the description. It's all under his name, Ian Hartitz. That's Hartitz. Obviously, we'll have him featured in the episode description here. And give him a follow, support his Rotowire backing, and look for his rankings. It's interesting stuff, and he's always got interesting things. If you're a Reddit user, he's a great person to follow because he gives out these tiers. We ran out of time, but I love your tiers on there. So a plug for that too, that you have. Use a ranking system for receivers that is super interesting. So all your content's great, Ian. I appreciate your time and joining us for the number one podcast in your headphones, Prem Brulee. It's been another edition. Hope you dug this fantasy football preview with Ian Hartitz of Matthew Berry's Fantasy Football Life, Rotowire. Like I said, Twitter at iHartitz. Find him on there. Go follow him if you don't already. Ian, appreciate you joining me, man. This was really fun to pick your brain.
Appreciate you, man. Shout out the number one podcast out here. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks.